I'm sure most of you have heard of Thermaltake before, although normally for their cases and cooling and peripheral side of things, you know, stuff like their P3, P5 and P7 cases, they really let you show off your build. This is their new WaterRAM, and they think that this will really help your build stand out even more, as it's essentially a 16 or a 32 gig kit, and by the way, depending on, or it doesn't depend on which one you get, both kits are 3200 MHz with CL16 timings, so not the slowest or the quickest latencies and not the fastest frequency. They do say that there's going to be faster kits coming out, but we'll talk more about that in a second. You also get a water block with it that sits on top of the RAM and screws down in, and essentially just helps cool the RAM. The main feature here is really the RGB, as it's the WaterRAM RGB as its product name is called, and we're going to take a look at it, so let's jump into it. Now the water block itself has a large thermal pad on the bottom that allows it to effectively transfer the heat from the flat tops of the RAM to the flat base of the block. As far as I can tell from the info that Thermaltake provided, the actual inside of the block here, and from what I can see inside as well, is completely flat on the inside. There's no microfans like you would normally find in a CPU water block, for example, which means that while the block itself doesn't actually need to dissipate that much heat, as RAM really doesn't get hot anyway, it's not the most effective block design possible, but they call it a high flow rate block design, so I suppose that's something for you. Now, as I mentioned, the main feature here is the RGB. There's an included cable that comes out the top of the block and connects to a sort of extender cable that goes to the included controller. The included controller is the same one that comes in the majority of Thermaltake RGB products. So for example, the Flow 240 that I reviewed has the same controller, and therefore you can connect the two the same thing, and you don't need two controllers inside your PC, which is always good. Now the controller itself, or the wire that you use to connect the block to the controller, actually has the two different types of addressable RGB headers, which means you can use that to connect to your motherboard and control it all if you fancy, or failing that, if your motherboard doesn't have an addressable header, or for some reason the addressable header that is on your board doesn't work with the two headers that are on there, then you can also use the included USB cable and use the Thermaltake software to control it all. You can also actually now use a mobile app for both Android and iOS if you fancy to control all the RGB and that sort of thing, so I guess that's cool to see as well. So in terms of pricing, the 16GB kit is selling in the UK for £230, and the 32GB kit is selling for £400. Just to give you a comparison, a comparable 32 gig Corsair Vengeance Pro RGB kit, again 3200 MHz CL16, is actually £40 less. Now of course this one does include a water block, but just that's a kind of rough comparison for you. Now while this is only an unboxing and showcase, as I haven't done any testing on this myself and therefore won't be a review, I kind of want to cover a few things and give you a few thoughts while we're here. The main thing is that the PC industry tried water blocks on RAM 5 or 10 years ago, and it kind of died out, generally for the reason that RAM doesn't get that hot on its own, and even when it does, it tends to like being hot. The numbers that Thermaltake provided for how effective their cooling, their block is here, said that without any heat sinks at all, the sticks were running at 48 degrees Celsius, which is perfectly fine for RAM and is probably a fairly reasonable recommended temperature. But otherwise, with the heat sinks and the water block on, it was running at 30 degrees. Now, technically speaking, this could actually be not as good for your RAM as you might think, but either way, especially at this sort of frequency, it really isn't necessary, and I don't quite understand why they're launching this frequency at all. I know that they said that they're launching faster frequencies in the near future, but at the same time, unless you really care about the RGB elements and you're already water cooling your system and you really like how this RGB works, which personally I'm not a fan of, then maybe this is for you. But unless you're talking about absolutely insane, like 4,600 to 5,000 megahertz frequencies, you really don't need any sort of decent cooling on RAM, because it generally does it itself. And as you saw with the data in terms of like literally no heat sinks on this, it can passively cool itself, so I don't quite understand. Of course, maybe I'm wrong. If you think I am and you like this idea, you're interested in getting one of these kits, then definitely let me know in the comments down below what you think and sort of why. I'd love to hear from you. Of course, if you're not so interested, or if you think that this is, you kind of, I suppose, agree with me here, then feel free to also let me know in the comments down below, as I would definitely love to hear from you as well. As I said, if you're interested in the kit, then check out the link in the description down below. I'll do my best to find some global links as well, as I've only been provided with a UK link, but either way, that's that. If you want to check out more videos, there are plenty over there for you. If you want to support the channel and keep me making these videos on a Monday, Wednesday, and Friday basis, even though this one's coming out on Tuesday, I apologize. Feel free to check out the links in the description down below. There's Amazon, Overclockers UK affiliate links. There's Patreon if you want to support me directly. There's also a load of other stuff like Humble Bundle, which is great for pretty cheap games, but also supporting charities. And you can also check out Private Internet Access, which is a great and cheap VPN. Otherwise, if you're new to the channel, make sure you hit that subscribe button. And otherwise, that's pretty much it. Thanks for watching. If you have any questions, leave those in the comments down below, and we'll see you all in the next video.